Hi, Mel here from My Body Fits, and on today's video I'm going to help you choose your first kettlebell. If the menopause is knocking at your door, or maybe it's smashed through your door and it's making itself at home, and you're fed up and overwhelmed seeing celebrities and fitness influencers delivering unrealistic programs that don't fit into real life, then breathe a sigh of relief because you've come to the right place. On this channel, I'm going to show you some simple, manageable, but effective workouts using mostly kettlebells that will help you feel physically, mentally, and emotionally stronger as you navigate this time of life. One of the biggest risks that we face during menopause is osteoporosis, which is just a fancy way of saying your bones get weaker. To reduce that risk, people like us need to include some sort of resistance training on a regular basis. But if you're anything like me with a job, kids, dog, household and the roller coaster of hormones that is perimenopause, having the time, never mind the energy, to stick to some of the programs out there feels impossible, and we end up feeling like a failure. I've been in the fitness industry since 2010 and I've been coaching kettlebells since 2017. I trained for 10 months for my kettlebell coaching qualification, and amongst other things I had to demonstrate 200 single arm swings with a 24 kilo bell in 10 minutes. That was insane. I'm super proud of that achievement, but when the menopause hit me in my mid-40s, my energy was suddenly zapped. It knocked me for six, and all that strength and confidence that I had seemed to disappear overnight. I had to learn new ways to train. I had to learn how to give my body the extra rest that it needed at this time, and how to adjust my training so that I didn't burn out and I could keep moving. Do me a favour, go down to the comments below right now and tell me your biggest challenge or frustration with exercise since the menopause hit you. Kettlebells are a fantastic tool for people like us. You can do really effective workouts with very little time, space and equipment. But first things first, we've got to get you your first kettlebells. Now, before we get into it, if you're anything like me, brain fog is an issue. So I've made a simple to follow PDF for you with all the information in today's video that you can print off and keep. Just use the link below or click the link in the description to get your copy. There are as many types of bells as there are opinions on what type and size you should get. I've been coaching kettlebells since 2017 and I'm going to share with you what I've seen in those years. So let's start with what your kettlebell's made from. Now this video is aimed at beginners buying their first kettlebell, so I'm going to compare the two types that most beginners consider, and that's plastic and cast iron. First up, the plastic kettlebell, made from vinyl and filled with either sand or cement or something like that. Plastic or vinyl kettlebells are generally quite a bit cheaper than cast iron bells, so they can make a good temporary option for anyone not sure if they want to pursue kettlebells. They're often larger than cast iron bells, so they can be a little bit cumbersome, but the handles are generally nice and wide and are great for two-hand work like deadlifts and two-hand swings. The fact that they are cheaper is reflected in the quality of the bells. They're not very durable, as you can see with this one, and they can split after long periods of use. Next up, cast iron kettlebells. These come in three types. You've got your pure cast iron, vinyl coated and neoprene coated. Cast iron bells are my favourite and the ones that I would recommend to anyone wanting to train long term. They're very, very durable. You'd be really hard pushed to ruin one of these. They come in different sizes as the weights go up. That means that they're really great for lots of different exercises. For the most part, the handles are a really good size and shape and suitable for most women, although the very first set I bought when I went freelance were really thick and chunky and not suitable for any of the women in my classes. I ended up selling the whole lot and buying loads of new ones. Note to self, try before you buy. Cast iron bells are more expensive and can seem pricey when you're starting out, but if you get the right ones, they'll last you a lifetime, so they're really worth the investment. My very first set of bells are still going strong 13 years later. The vinyl and the neoprene coated bells are really good if you're training at home or somewhere that you want to protect the floor, because the bottom is covered too. The coating on the handles can also be really helpful and add grip for things like squats. They're also really nice colours, which is a really cool thing. My minties are my favourites. So in conclusion, plastic bells are okay if you're trying out kettlebells to see if you like it because they're cheaper. I'd even go as far to say look out on Gumtree or eBay or Facebook sales in your local area to see if there are any second-hand ones. Just the other day I saw a pair of small plastic bells for sale for just £5 on Facebook. I wouldn't invest in these if you decided that you love kettlebells and you're planning to train with them long term. If you're using them lots, they won't last. They do make a fab doorstop though. Cast iron are my favourite. They can be more expensive but are well worth the investment. The sizes they come in are really practical and you really can't break them. They also make good doorstops. Okay, let's move on to size and see how to choose the right size for you. For absolute beginners, I'd recommend starting with 2 bells. Now the most popular bells that I've seen for women are 8 and 12 kilos and the majority of women will get there. But of course that's not where everyone's going to start. In all of my beginner courses there's a variety. A 6 and an 8 kilo may be where you need to start. But here's a few questions that you can ask yourself. Have you been training with weights regularly? If you have, you could probably start with an 8 and a 12 kilo. Or are you completely new to any sort of weight training? If you are, maybe a 6 and an 8 would be good to start with. Do you have any injuries that prevent you from using heavy weights at the moment? And if you do, you may need to use a much lighter weight to start with. If you're going to go to a shop to try out the weights, don't judge what it feels like to just pick the bells up. The way I teach kettlebells, you'll discover that you can swing, lift, squat and press much more than you think you can. Once you've mastered the basics and you've decided that kettlebells is for you and you're starting to take your training more seriously, you'll want to start thinking about your evergreen set of bells. I'd recommend having a set of 3 for this, a light, medium and a heavy bell. Now for some of my clients, this is an 8, 12 and 16. For some of the newer guys, it's 6, 8 and 10. But for some of the guys that have been training for years, it's 12, 16 and 20. When you've been training for a while and you get round to choosing your evergreen set, you'll be much more clued up as to what that should be. But again, don't underestimate how much you can do. So in my classes, everyone is encouraged to assess what they can do on that day. Now sometimes this means going heavy, sometimes it means switching between bells as the class goes on, and sometimes it means dialing it back to your beginner set if you're recovering from illness or injury, or if life is just overwhelming and you're feeling less strong than you normally do, especially if you're approaching or going through the menopause. Sometimes we just have no idea how much energy we'll have from one day to the next. Having at least 3 bells means you can always do something. Over the years, when my energy has been tanked for months on end, I've regressed back to using just a 10 kilo bell. I've even had a spell of using my OGs just to keep me going. So, to summarise, 2 bells to start with. 8 and a 12 kilo are the most popular pair to start if you've got a foundation of lifting weights. 6 and 8 kilo if you're an absolute beginner to any kind of weight training. Once you've mastered the basics and you're quite sure that this is for you, I recommend settling on 3 bells or your evergreen set. The weights will become clearer the more experience you get, but you can choose 8, 12 and 16 or 12, 16 and 20 if you want to go heavier. When it comes to choosing the type of bell, plastic is okay for the short term. Maybe try and find some second-hand ones. Cast iron is my top recommendation if you're in it for the long term. Neoprene and vinyl coated is great if you'll be using your bells at home on the floor and you don't want to ruin it. I hope this guide has been helpful to you and you feel a little bit more confident about getting out there and buying yourself some bells. Don't forget to grab your PDF with all the information from today's video by clicking the URL below or pop down into the description. If you have any questions at all, please do pop them in the comments and I will do my very best to answer them for you. I hope that once you've bought your first set of bells, you'll come back to my channel and join me in some of my super simple kettlebell workouts. I'll see you next week. The menopause is...
Bumping the floor like a rhino.
Yeah, it's like a stim. And the roller coaster of Hermione's. What was that? Use the link below.